Hey everybody, this is Cher, and I'm back with Essential Oil Apothecary, and we're doing another wildcard distillation. I'm showing you camellia flowers, but that's not what we're going to distill this week. We're most definitely going to distill them probably in the next week or two because we are in full swing for the blossoms. And we did, our last distillation was actually green tea. So you see a green tea leaf right there. But what we are distilling is something absolutely taking over my space here. And that is the jonquil flower. I just picked these this morning. Yesterday it was paper whites, and they went into a perfume maceration that I started in January of 2022. And these ones, because we're at the beginning of the season, I just decided that I would distill these beautiful flowers, and then the next ones will go into an alcoholic maceration. So we're going to do a few different things because when they arrive in full force. So we're going to be able to harvest it, I think, at least 3 times. I'm still kind of new to the seasonality of flowers that grow here in Sacramento, California. I'm from Canada, so I'm not used to seeing any of this, believe me. There's lots of trees up there, and so, I would always harvest resins, and, I'd be in full season of drinking pine tea, that's for sure. And, if you want to see a video on all of that, I'm happy to do it as well. But the flowers are pretty special because we're in January, and so it's January 2023, and this is what I picked. I mean, it kind of blows my mind. I feel really luxurious about it all. So this is what we're going to distill today. So as you can imagine, these flowers, they're delicate and they are just giving off their absolute magnificent breath. And I like to call it flower vapor. Anyway, there's such a strong indole note, which is, jasmine's very, one of the many, but jasmine's one of the many flowers that is famous for that indole, or what some people call poopy note. And so what I decided to do is I'm going to fill both columns, and we're going to do a very, very gentle steam. We're also going to make sure that this condenser stays super iced. So I'm going to take it as slow as I can without stalling out the distillation and see if we can pull some gorgeous notes off of this flower. I'm pretty excited, so I hope you enjoy this, and let's see what happens. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to finish filling these columns, and then on to the next thing. Okay, I'm getting excited. The columns are packed, and we have the distilled water on the bottom. And before we get this distillation rolling, I wanted to talk briefly about these flowers. So as I mentioned before, I picked paper whites yesterday, and I picked these this morning. And they're both from the Narcissus family. So they're both genuses of that flower family, which is a big one, actually. I can't remember. Is it like 500 species? Don't quote me on that part. I'd have to double check on that. But so the paper whites that I picked yesterday, they actually went into an perfumer's alcohol maceration that I started with paper whites in January of 2022, which was last year. We're in January 2023 at the moment. So anyway, so I decided to do that with them. And these ones, because we're just getting into the season, I wanted to distill them first, and then I'll talk a little bit later about some of the other things I want to do with these because I believe I should be able to get 2 or 3 more harvests out of some of the areas that I found when I was foraging the other day. As most people in America know, we have had some incredible storms, and I really hadn't seen the sun since November, and was actually starting to feel depressed because I couldn't really forage for anything. But now the sun is back, and we still have lots of water everywhere, but we needed it. But now I'm able to start my winter foraging, and it's already kicking into high gear, so that's pretty exciting. It's a little early, but it could be because we got that much needed rain. But anyway, getting back to these flowers, how they differentiate in terms of the scent profile is the paper whites are more of I call them a lady's floral, because they still have the indole notes that these do, and that is the note that is kind of famous in jasmine flowers. That people call it poopy note or whatever. I always call it poopy note too, but that's me just trying to have the the laugh track in there. But it's actually called an indole note. So it's that that kind of like that funky note, but you kind of need it because it's kind of a sensual note. So and these are more pronounced, and so I had to kind of learn that because, again, I'm from Canada and we just don't get this kind of, all of these kinds of flowers. I mean, eventually some of this stuff grows. And of course we do have lilacs like a mother. I do miss my lilacs. I would love to be working with them, but they just do not like Sacramento. And so it's okay. I'm very content working with what I get to work with. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk a minute about the notes before we get this distillation on its way. And this is very pronounced. It's very, very like jasmine grandiflorum like, very sweet and indole like. Actually, no, that's not true. It's actually more like jasmine sambac without the spice. So it's sweet, but it's kind of a deeper indole, kind of animalic note to it. So I hope that kind of helps you kind of figure out, because if you see both, you can kind of decide, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to distill them? Do you want to do enfleurage, which is, placing flowers in fat, which I want to talk about later? Or do you want to do a maceration in perfumer's alcohol? I mean, there's just so many things you can do. Or you can dry them and make your own incense. So there's lots of stuff. But anyway, I'm going to get this this distillation started, and let's see what we end up with this flower. Okay, so we're going to get this going. I'm going to start it at 2, just to get the steam rolling a little bit. We don't want it too hot, of course. And again, I don't pack the condenser until I feel the heat travel up the columns and to the top. I did want to talk real briefly about these filters that you typically see in my setup. So you can get them at any dollar store, any store like 99-cent store, dollar store, whatever. They're super cheap. You can get them by the hundreds. And it's actually better to get the ones that are the brown color, because of course these are white, means they're bleached. I did what I could. Sometimes I can't get that kind of thing, and I just couldn't right now. Because, as I say often, COVID's ruined everything. So supplies, that's a tough one. But anyway, I always have a 1 and a spare. So the reason being is I learned kind of the hard way one time in the very beginning. I was packing the condenser here with ice, and some ice, I wasn't careful about how I placed it in there, and some ice actually went into the filter, and I didn't, I wasn't careful to watch for that, and it melted and went into the hydrosol, which actually ruined the hydrosol. And so now I have one and a spare, and I make sure that when I'm packing ice in, I use some kind of narrow container or a little cup or whatever, and I carefully place ice in the condenser. Now, eventually I'm going to do a series using a separatory funnel. We'll get into more of that later this year. I just really wanted to focus on the simplest distillation setup possible, so because it's very overwhelming when you start distilling. You just don't know what's going to happen. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who thought I might blow up the house. And we'll have some outtakes on that too at some point, because I almost did. But they were knucklehead moves and I deserved the scare. So, but we'll talk about that in another series or another time later this year. But I always like to have extras, and just in case, you know, if I'm packing the still, ice gets in there, you want that out of there immediately. You don't want it to melt and go into your hydrosol. All right, we are on our way, and in about 20 minutes, we should have some steam starting to climb up the column and making its way to the condenser. And at that time, I will carefully pack the still with ice and wait for our first few drops of jonquil. Yes. Okay, we are just getting the first drops of the jonquil, and I'm going to turn this down a little bit because we're going to really baby this distillation. So we're going to turn it down to 1. It's in a hard boil right now. Oh my goodness. We've just had a Scottish fold sighting, folks. Okay, so back to the distillation. You can really smell this flower. It has completely permeated the whole area. So this is going to be an interesting distillation. Oh, wow. The scent of this is driving me nuts. You know, I sell this in the apothecary as an absolute, but I can't wait to actually use this hydrosol. I can't wait. I'm just really excited. I'm smelling a little bit of tobacco flower notes, obviously the indole notes, very floral. Oh, it's all over the board. It's very heady. It's very rich. It makes me feel like it's already a sophisticated perfume all on its own. It's absolutely amazing. Woohoo! Oh my God. I love this job. All right, we're just finishing the first 16 ounces of jonquil flower hydrosol, and we'll be moving on to the second bottle in a matter of 40 seconds. I'm actually gonna make a decision to cut this distillation a little bit short. And the reason being is the flower is so delicate, and I don't want to lose some of the compounds or the scent profile that I've already captured. And I'm already kind of smelling something a little bit different. So I think we're going to call it a day for this distillation. And yeah, so that means we got a 16 ounce bottle, and I'd say this is about 8 ounce. But that is our distillation of jonquil flowers. Fresh picked this morning at sunrise.